Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today here to talk about some thriller and horror book releases for the month of June.
It's coffee time.
So I kind of thought, towards summer there is sometimes less horror releases, but boy was I wrong. We do have many thrillers that are coming out this summer, and there are some in the month of June that are some of my most anticipated ones. So needless to say, I'm really excited, even though they kind of come out towards the end, so I still have to wait a little bit. But I'm here to let you know which thrillers and horrors that I have come across that are coming out in June I find interesting. Let's kickstart this list with a self-published horror book called The Cursed Among Us by John Durgan. 20 years ago, the Black Heart Killer terrorized people, and it was back in 1979. That was 20 years ago, and people since then have learned to stay away from the woods, because in the woods that's where they found the bodies of the people this serial killer killed with their hearts removed. But now, like I said, 20 years later, we have Howie and his friends, and they're like, you know what? Rules are meant to be broken, so we're just gonna go into the woods and we're just gonna have a good time. And then everything probably just turns to hell, as we all hope. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. You guys know I love stories about serial killers. The Wasp Child, Rhiannon Rasmussen, and this one really got me intrigued because it's a science fiction horror about a kid called Ken that has these powers, and he has been born into a colony and he's afraid of the people there and the powers and everything, and then his classmates dump him in some sort of alien rainforest where he has to basically survive by himself. It sounds really intriguing and mysterious, and like I always say, I really need to get into more sci-fi horror. Never the Wind by Francesco Dimitri. It is a new gothic horror. In this gothic fantasy, we have a 13-year-old that in 1996 he basically goes blind, and his family decides to move and drop him out of school and start a new life in Italy. And then he tells us his story through like his his other senses, like his taste bud, his sense of smell and touch and all of that, and I thought that was a really interesting concept for a gothic story. Yeah, so this one is kind of a gothic tale combined with some fantasy. Aurora by David Koepp is a horror mystery thriller, and it all takes place in Aurora, Illinois, where Audrey is starting to kind of move on with her life after her ex-husband leaves her alone. Her criminal ex-husband leaves her alone with her kind of like a rebelling teenage son. On top of that, basically a solar storm leaves the world slowly without any power, so it kind of becomes a story of survival. Screams from the Dark, 29 Tales of Monsters and the Monstrous, and this is edited by Ellen Datlow, which is really well known in the community. She has edited many science fiction and horror short horror story anthologies. And as the title kind of implies, this is all about different type of monsters, from your classic ones, werewolves, vampires, to also, more uncommon ones perhaps, like aliens that are not addressed enough perhaps in horror. He Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White, and this is a horror YA with LGBTQ plus characters. Our main character, it is a trans character that finds himself trying to get away from the cult where he was born into, and on top of that, this same cult has kind of caused Armageddon in the world. So this is going to be probably kind of an epic apocalyptic scenario. I do have this one on my TBR for this month of May. I still have not gotten to it, but I really want to, so hopefully I'll be able to get to this one soon. From Below by Darcy Coates. This is a mystery thriller as we know it from her. She normally writes about haunted houses. In this case, we have, ready for summer, what it looks like, a haunted ship. So this is all about a ship that sank years ago. There is no explanation. There was a mysterious message that was broadcasted by the ship. So it's probably about a ghost ship underneath. So really excited because most of the things that I have seen or read by her have been haunted houses scenarios, but never a ghost ship. Little Bird by Tiffany Muret, and this is fantasy horror. And actually I am currently nearly finishing this book because I got an early copy, and what I can tell you is that this is a really weird tale about a woman that one day discovers some sort of mysterious plant that starts to grow in her backyard, and on top of that a skeleton appears there as well one day that she calls Scully, and it is really more weird fiction, I would say, than really horror. There is a mystery involved. Of course, we want to know why this plant was there, why this skeleton appeared. But it is a really interesting tale, definitely different from other things that I have read, and so far I'm enjoying it. A Botanist's Guide to Parties and Poisons by Kate Cavalli, and this is a historic horror mystery. London, 1923. We are in the University College of London, and there is a party with professors and students, and one of the professors is poisoned and dies. So this gives us your classic mystery of who done it. Another professor is blamed for that death, but one of his students, Saffron, she knows that he's innocent, or so she believes, and is trying to prove thanks to science and plants and botany. Blood Mountain by Brenda S. Tullian, and this is a southwestern gothic story, and if you read the synopsis on Goodreads, it's absolutely bonkers. It is all connecting different characters and basically what is eating them on the inside. It also evolves about a mountain and a goddess that appears to take revenge on people that have been abusing the mountain. It is what sounds to me a really intriguing thing, because we also have a sheriff that has this guild of victims of crimes he couldn't solve. So I wonder if all of this is kind of a metaphor of, you know, guilt and grief and things that eat us up from the inside. So this one is one that has me really intrigued because the synopsis is really mysterious. Boys, Beasts and Men by Sam J. Miller, and this is a compilation of short horror stories, and they do include LGBTQ plus characters. These are really short horror fantasy stories that deal with the things that happen more often than we would want to, like bullies. They deal with like teenagers being lied to online and falling for those traps. So this sounds like a more kind of down-to-earth stories. The Hangman Feeds the Jackal by Coy Hall, and this is a gothic western horror. Elijah is a gunfighter that has hallucinations, and in those hallucinations he always has the impression that the hangman is coming for him to kill him. So yeah, good dreams. And because of these beautiful dreams, these beautiful hallucinations, he sadly sometimes has killed people that were innocent. So he's kind of forced to go away to a monastery. So I don't know, it sounds interesting. Again, this is more of, I guess, the demons that you have in your own head, because we would like to know why is he having these hallucinations. Will it get explained? Hopefully. But if you love a good western horror, this might be for you. Silk Hills by Ryan Farrier is a horror graphic novel that takes place in an Appalachian trail, in Appalachian region, and it is kind of a story of someone that is called there because she has this power of being able to locate people. So they call her when somebody goes missing, and when she gets there, she expected a cultural shock, but she basically got a lot more than she bargained for. The Path of Thorns by A.G. Slatter, and this is a gothic mystery horror with a little bit of fantasy as well. And this one sounds like your classic gothic story. We have a woman here that decides to become the governess of a mansion for a family with kids and stuff, and when she gets there she realizes that there's something a little bit off in this place. There are locked rooms, there are paintings that are missing from the walls, and also the father needs her help in his laboratory. He kind of creates his own potions for curing things. So it kind of sounds, you know, like the Bly Manor concept, like turn of the screw concept, but with a little bit added to it, since we have now this element added of the laboratory with the potions. Not Good for Maidens by Tori Bobalino, and this is a LGBTQ plus horror retelling with some fantasy. Lou never believed in superstition or magic, but that is until her teenage aunt is kidnapped and taken to the goblin market. So our main character is going to find herself in this new world, the goblin market, a really dangerous place where people go, and will they ever come out? We shall see, but I'm really curious to see this goblin market and see if there is any specific magic or anything specific to these characters. It sounds intriguing to me. It did remind me obviously automatically of The Labyrinth, so I'm excited to see what they did with the story. Die Riot, a Fighterpunk anthology edited by Nico Bell. We have here 12 fat positive tales of people accepting themselves, accepting their curves, and representation is really important nowadays. More than ever, we are seeing more and more representation, which was about time. So I'm really excited to discover all the different tales and all the different characters from this anthology. Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed, and this is historical horror adult retelling. What I find really interesting about this story is that we are in a civilization where basically we're going from witchcraft and people with magical powers to a more industrialized civilization. So we are seeing the change between these two, and we have a father that is a wizard and his daughters that have some powers and are struggling to make, you know, month's end, and they're trying to, you know, use divination or some remedies, some cures that they are able to make in order to survive. But I guess they're gonna get in trouble as more and more industry comes into the world and everything is being a little bit more industrialized, and a lot more bigger companies, things like that, and then magic and all of that becomes obsolete. So I'm really intrigued because this is a really interesting concept if you think about it, because of course back in the day there were many people that offered, you know, remedies and potions and things, and those were the ones considered witches. But then at some point, you know, we got the revolution, the industrial revolution, and things changed. So yeah, I'm just really intrigued about this one in general to see what they did. The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Needless to say, this is one of my most anticipated releases of 2022. You guys know I'm a fangirl. I really enjoy Riley Sager, and this is one that I definitely have on pre-order. Casey is a recently widowed actress that is receiving a lot of bad press, so she decides to go to spend some time in the house that she owns by the lake. And she gets to know when she gets there their new neighbors, and it is a couple that seem to be perfect and nice, and that is until one day the neighbor's wife disappears, Catherine, and she starts to suspect that maybe her neighbors are a little bit more dangerous than she thought. That is all I know. So it's kind of like your typical trope, you know, woman in the window thing. And I don't know what Riley Sager is going to do with this concept, because there is always a couple of twists and turns in his stories that I don't see coming, which is part of why I really enjoy his books. So yeah, really excited to see if he goes into the tropes of this type of mystery thrillers and if he's going to push the boundaries. And from one beloved author of mine to another one, we have We Can Never Leave This Place by Eric LaRocca. Luckily, I received an early copy of this, so I already read it in the month of May, and I gotta tell you, it is stunning, it is disturbing, it is amazing. And again, even though it has some similar concepts, if you may, or themes that I've seen repeat in his stories. It's still completely different and unexpected. It follows Mara that after the unexpected death of her father is left alone with her mother and a guest that her mother invites to their home that is supposed to protect them, but will this guest really protect them? That is all I'm going to tell you, because honestly, when you go into his stories, the least you know, the better for the impact of all the craziness and all the roller coaster of emotions that you're going to get. This one was really disturbing and amazing, and I loved it. So definitely one that I would already recommend you guys. The Cluckity by Laura Senf, and this is a middle grade horror, and I am really excited because I have been really enjoying to read more and more middle grade. This is the story about a girl that has to enter the mysterious world of witches and ghosts and spirits in order to play a game that she needs to play to rescue her aunt. So it sounds just beautiful, delicious, and I really want to get to this one too this year. And now by the author of Frightville, the Frightville series, which I find really entertaining, we get another middle grade horror by him called The Lonely Ghost by Mike Ford. And these follow twin sisters, and the family decides to move to a new mansion, and they think, you know, the idea of moving to a kind of a mansion is romantic, but that changes when they enter through the door and everything looks like it's gonna fall apart and it's dirty. And then the twin sisters remove the wallpaper in the room because they want to, you know, make a new wallpaper and redecorate everything, and they find some like childlike paintings in the wall that were hidden by the wallpaper. And after that, one of the twins seems to be a little bit off, acting a little bit weird. So it does sound like your typical, you know, mansion hunting story, but it is just so much fun to read these middle grade books, and perfect also to get out of a reading slump. Katzenjammer by Franziska Zappia, and this is YA horror fantasy. I did try to read something by the author before, some YA contemporary, but it was just not my cup of tea. So I'm excited to see what she's going to do now with this new one, because we have horror fantasy. Told between the past and the present, we follow the story of a girl in high school that is basically trapped there and hasn't left high school for the longest time, and she starts to realize that the things around her are starting to look creepy, like the bathrooms are full of blood, people seem to be wearing these weird flesh masks, like reality starts to blur a little bit, and I'm guessing this is going to be connected with some sort of trauma. Our main character doesn't know why she's trapped in school or why reality is kind of changing around her. Plus, the book also has black and white illustrations in between, which I always think is a plus in books. Lingering by Chris Koppel, and this is a horror story that follows a married couple, Paul and Christy, and they decide to move and have a fresh start because Christy's abusive father is about to die, and she just needs to move out and go somewhere else and kind of try to deal with everything going around her. But when they move into the new place, they have the feeling that something, some presence, some kind of creature, something from the woods perhaps, is trying to communicate with them. And to finish off, I have a paranormal YA fantasy called Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. The story is told from two different characters. We have Ivy and we have Dana, and this is a story about a place, about a city and the suburbs, and weird things that happen, like accidents, mysterious people appearing all of a sudden in the middle of the road, strangers, and it kind of sounds a little bit, you know, like these typical stories that I like, told from two different perspectives that kind of merge and come together in one big story. So I'm excited about this one. It is fantasy, so paranormal, so it's a little bit more different than the things that I normally read, so this might be an interesting change for me. Alright, you guys, so that was everything. It was a lot. It was like 24 different titles are coming out in the month of June. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found something here that you're interested in, or maybe I reminded you of something that's coming out that you forgot that it's coming out in the month of June. Let me know down below what you are the most excited about when it comes to releases for the month of June. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!